You're watching The Breakdown, ThePapare.com's weekly rugby segment where we bring you all the ins and outs of Sri Lankan rugby. And last week was an interesting week where the much-awaited 2017 Schools Rugby League started, and also we did have the Clifford Cup final on Sunday. Shanaka, talking about the Schools League, we had 6 games lined up during the weekend. How did it go for you?
Some pretty outstanding games as well. Everybody's been waiting for this season to kick off. Lots of controversy whether it's going to start on time, whether it's going to get delayed, all that sort of thing. But finally, when the games kicked off, I think everyone breathed a sigh of relief, except perhaps the players, because there's a lot of pressure on these guys, and you could see it from some of the results. Some very close games. Let's go to the first one, Sudarshan, and look at St. Peter's and St. Anthony's at the Rector's Trophy. A really close win. St. Peter's leading comfortably in that game, but then St. Anthony's coming back, almost pulling it off at the end. 27 points to 25, just 2 points in it after a 24-15 lead that St. Peter's had at half-time. So it looks like there's very little to pick between these teams.
Definitely. The two teams, St. Peter's were lucky enough in the first half, they got on to a healthy lead, which is why the Antonians found it a little difficult coming on in the second half. But Anthony's looks like they've gotten a very good team after a lapse of maybe 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, I was speaking to Vaipa Gunaratna last season, I think, and he said, this is a young side, be patient, they'll be good in a couple of years' time. And this is part of his work in progress. And when I saw them play a couple of times last season, Samuel Madhuwanta is really a linchpin. He's a guy that can bring out the best in the rest of the team, because he gives them a lot of go-forward ball, and he gives them areas that they can run into, areas on the field that they can play from. So he's a real asset to that side, apart from his point scoring. But this Antonian side will be one to watch this season.
Definitely. Apart from Madhuwanta, Jehan Silagama, the centre forward, is one of the most exciting prospects in that Antonian team as well, because he runs in the ball very hard as well.
Yeah, and they're not small guys. And that's something that's really interesting to see as well. They're strong and they carry the ball forward with a lot of momentum and with a lot of purpose. So they're playing, Vaipa Gunaratna's teams have always been very good technically, Sudarshan, and that's what we're seeing here. If you can do the basics well, that's all you need to succeed.
Talking about the basics, the next game on the 24th, that was on Friday, was between Trinity College and Wesley College. Wesley hosting Trinity, of course, at the Longdon Place. Many picked this to be a very close game, but Trinity running away with it.
Yeah, I was actually surprised at how much they won by 40 points. I wasn't expecting that going into this game. But you remember we were in the commentary box and I said the first 10 minutes is going to decide this game. And it did in the end, because Trinity were the ones who scored first, took the wind out of the sails of the Wesley team. And I think from last season, when they had lost a few close matches, I think the Wesleyites thought, oh, here we go all over again. So they never really recovered from that first 10 minutes blitz. And that's what really happened to them, although they came close on the scoreboard. At one point, I think it was 21-17. But the next 10 minutes again, where Trinity scored about 2 or 3 tries successively, I think, to take them from 21 to 40 at halftime. And when it was 40 points at halftime, it was really a mountain too far for Wesley to climb.
Sri Lankan Rugby fraternity taking their first look at coach Raikabula's antics, and soon after the game, Shana Kamrasingh, who was in the commentary box, made a statement about that game. He said, if there's one word I'm going to call the Trinity outfit, I'll call it organized. So that's a big compliment, Shanaka.
Well, I should hope so, because not enough teams are organized in Sri Lankan rugby. And what they did do well was everyone knew what their job was, and they performed their core skills well. You didn't see anyone trying to do somebody else's work. You didn't find them pointing fingers at each other. You didn't find them looking at each other without knowing what happened, like Sri Lankan slip fielders do. It was one of those things that they knew exactly what they were doing, and they went out on the field and executed it. And I think Raikambula also showed that it was a 23-man game. He emptied his bench very early on, gave everyone some game time. And I liked what he was doing. He was setting his big forwards up against smaller backs, creating mismatches. The conditioning is good. Everyone knows what they're up against, and that Boyagoda link was really outstanding. The interplay between those backs was very good.
So that was the reason why Trinity ended up the game 64 points to Wesley's 24. 10 tries run in by the Lions in Colombo. So that will give them a lot of confidence, because in this season, they only have one home game, Prince of Wales playing up in Pallekele. For the rest of the first round, they will be travelling to Colombo. And on the 25th, the next day, we had 4 games lined up. The first one, St. Thomas's, clean sweep against the newcomers, Prince of Wales.
What really excites me about this scoreline, Sudarshan, is not the fact that St. Thomas has scored 9 tries and have 57 points on the board. What excites me is that they didn't concede any, and that's important for St. Thomas's because they need to get their defense right. Because this season they're not going to be as attacking a threat as they were last season because Navin Henakankanamge is going to be marked. And he's the guy that had the most penetration last year. So it's going to be a bit difficult for him to make the sort of inroads that he did last year. So it's very important that they nail down their defense and don't let the other side score points. So that's something that I think Coach Laga will be more happy about than the 57 points they actually scored. But that being said, Henakan Kanang were scoring 2 tries, Dharmaraja with 2 tries, Hans Walpola, the young fly half, with a try, and Manoratna also with a try, which makes 9 tries. And it's not easy to score 9 tries as a schoolboy, Sudarshan. Even in 80 minutes, it's 1 try every 10 minutes. And Prince of Wales is not a terrible team at all. So I think that it was a good outing for St. Thomas's. It gives them a nice little bit of impetus, but you can't judge anything by it yet.
Definitely, because the next game is up with a brand new team who's already making waves, Gyro College, but we'll come to that. Next game, big one, Royal College versus St. Joseph's. St. Joseph's revamped, and Royal College always is a favourite coming into the league. How did that pan for you?
Well, Royal are very difficult to beat at home. And if they play the way they did against St. Joseph's, I think they're going to be very difficult to beat away from home as well. Because they're a team without a lot of flash, Sudarshan. They don't have a lot of big names. Aski is one of the bigger names in their team. And George at fullback also is a very competent player. Janita Dilshan also at number 13. He's a good player. But not a lot of these guys had a lot of ball in their hands. St. Joseph's defense was quite good. But how they did score their tries was very organized. Again, it was very well drilled. Their forwards at the breakdown were just outstanding. The pick and go was very difficult to defend. And even though St. Joseph's really tried, they punched a lot of holes in their defense, and that allowed for quite a few breakaway tries as well. An intercept try which really killed the game at the end for Royal when St. Joseph's were on the attack. So once St. Joseph scored, we saw Royal's heads drop. And at that point, you thought it was anybody's game. But once they got that first rolling maul try, then the confidence came back. They remembered, okay, this is how we win games. And this Royal team is a team that knows how to win. Whether they play ugly, whether they play pretty rugby, it doesn't matter to them. They're just guys who know how to win. And that's something that is really important for a team as well. You've seen England doing that in these 6 nations. They've played ugly rugby and they're still winning matches. And that's what's important when you're building a championship side. So although a lot of people are saying that Royal were not up to the mark, I kind of disagree. I think they actually came out well. Depending on the injuries, I think their number 6 and number 7 were injured in that game. If those injuries are not serious, well done to Royal, but if they are, they could be facing a bit of a problem at the breakdown.
Definitely. The forwards didn't turn up in the first few phases of the game. They actually lost about 3 lineouts, the starting 3 lineouts, which basically hassled them a little, but going on, they picked it up. And like you mentioned, the forwards did play very well. So Hamza Riza, I believe, notes a mention because he was absolutely brilliant leading the forwards from the front.
Yeah, he's a tough player, isn't he, Sudarshan? He throws into the line out as well, so he was under a little bit of pressure. In the early stages, he was at the back of a scrum going backwards, but he managed to get through all those things. And the strength and conditioning of this Royal pack looks really good because St. Joseph's, I think, had them on the back foot early on in the game, but as the game wore on, when the second half came on, that's when Royal really got on the up and up because their conditioning was so good. They didn't tire at all. They were around the park. They were defending. They were picking and going. It was really a good, from a forwards point of view, it was really good to watch.
The final scorecard read 28 points to Royal against St. Joseph's 22. A late charge by Josephians, which was not enough for Royal. Hamza Risa, Shenuko Pereira, Sabit Feroz, Zoe Naski got onto the scoreboard with Mohammad Sharik putting in 2 conversions, and the first drop goal of the season coming through Ovinaski's boot. So people will have that in mind for Jose, Sean Akila, Gihan Pereira, Channa Ashok, Vinul Fernando and Chatura Senaviratna converting 1 conversion of the 4 tries. Moving on to the next game, Gyro College got a A-Division victory after 14 years.
Their first A-Division victory in their first game, Sudarshan. What more can you ask for? Yes, it was a close one. It was just 19 points to 13, but that's good enough. Whether you win by 1 or you win by 40, it's still a win. And I think for me, Shamli Nawaz is one of the shrewdest players I have played with and against, and he brings that into the coaching room as well. And he's a guy who understands the opposition, what they're trying to do, and he gets into the heads of his players. He knows exactly what he wants them to do, and he's trained them so well in understanding the game of rugby that this Zahira team is going to be one to be watched. St. Thomas is coming up against them next week. It's not going to be a done deal by any stretch.
We all know that Science College have been giant killers in the season. Yes, they didn't have a very good outing initially. It's a very, very young side. Coach Ibrahim was clear about it, but those boys are not going to go down without a fight as well, because when it comes to Coach Trinity, Ibrahim is one of the veteran coaches in the setup.
Yeah, he is, but he's got a very young team to work with. This Science College side has leaked a lot of talent, like the Madhuranga and Lasinda Vishan. All those guys have moved on from Science, and they were the cream of the crop. So they've got to build again, and they're in the rebuilding phase. But they've come close to Zahira College, and Zahira College is a team that a lot of people will benchmark against. And I think that just because they lost this one game, they shouldn't think their season is over at all. This is where they start, and I think games like Science Isipatana are going to be games that everyone will want to watch.
Science College, we had Sanjula Rohan and Imesh Priyadarshan touching down for Science with the penalty converted by Vibhuda Sahan, and for the victors, Zahira, one try by Yuzan Lantra, converted by Zalid Singhawansa, and 4 penalties coming in from Singhawansa's boot, which won the game for Zahira. So the footballing antics coming into the rugby field.
They've always had great footballers at Zahira. That has been their main sport in the recent past, Sudarshan. So they're going to be dangerous from the kicking tee, and other teams will do well to understand that and not infringe in areas where they allow Singhawansa to get easy 3 points.
And coming on to the final game of the week, Isipatana College, the defending champions, took on Dharmaraja, largely unknown team, and it was a close one, 18 points to 12.
Last time I think this was Isipatana's first match as well in the last season, and they put up 60 points or something against Dharmaraja. So you can see either Dharmaraja has improved tremendously or Isipatana have lost a few of their stars, and they have. Guys like Rehan Silva, Kushani Dunil, Umar Gunaratna all have left the side. So when you lose players like that, Sudarshan, you're always going to have a little bit of a gap to fill. So again, I think like Science College, Isipatana also in a bit more of a rebuilding phase. When it comes to next year and the year after, I think they'll have really good sides. But this year maybe one of those small blips on their otherwise very high standard kind of teams that they've been churning out. But still, 18 points to 12 is a close game. Don't forget, it's still the first week of rugby. A lot of these teams are still finding their combination, still finding their feet. The big boys the small boys rather, are still finding their way in what is a packed environment, a different pressure cooker kind of environment that they go into. So they'll get used to that in the next couple of weeks, and all these teams, especially these last 4 teams we spoke about, Dharmaraja, Isipatana, Science and Zahira, will keep getting better.
Definitely they will. And Isipatana College had Sabanayaka touching down twice with Ravindu Anjula getting a try. Dilaka Hettiarache did not manage to convert any tries but got a penalty for himself. And for Dharmaraja, ThePapare and Sandeep Hevage getting in tries with Gihan Ishara converting 1. So Dharmaraja, not an ideal start, but they're back in A division. They would be very happy with the score that they left with playing against Isipatana, the reigning champions. Yeah,
well, they're defending champions, Isipatana, aren't they? So to lose to them by just 1 score, I think Dharmaraja will count themselves very lucky about that. Not lucky, but I think they have worked hard after the trouble they had last season about getting back into the A division, all that controversy about their match with St. Joseph. So I think they've shrugged all that off, and they've come through with a new coach, the new setup, and congratulations to them. Hopefully they will keep going the right way.
That is all for the school's rugby's opening week, but that wasn't all for rugby in Sri Lanka. Sunday, Clifford Cup finals, Kandy Sports Club taking on Havelocks. Many thought that it will turn out to be a massacre after Kandy leading 24 points to 3 after the first half. But But second half, different story.
Well, Havelocks are too good a side to allow a massacre, Sudarshan. I think they've been good this whole season without being excellent. They've got some great players, some great game breakers, but I think as a team, Kandy understand each other a little bit better. They've been playing together for longer. A lot of these guys, Roshan Weeraratne and Gaan Weeraratne, have been playing together since they were probably 5 years old. So they understand each other really well. Fazil and Roshan have been together for ages. The Dharmaraja on the wing, I think he's been outstanding. Tirana Vijayasinghe coming through has been just one of the finds of the season. He's up there for me as player of the season for Kandy for sure. So,
and what's funny about that is Shanaka did mention brilliant players on that lineup and he forgot to mention Danushka Ranjan. So that's the quality Kandy has.
Exactly. Because Danushka Ranjan hasn't stood out this season, Sudarshan. He hasn't been the go-to guy for Kandy. He has scored tries, yes, but so has everybody else. And he has scored tries that other people have created. So because of the quality of the Kandy side, Danushka Ranjan doesn't look like a head and shoulders above everyone else, which he kind of did when he was playing at Havelocks. So I think the Havies have potential in them to go the extra distance next season, but this season they've got to get a few things right.
So at the end of the game, the scoreline stood at 24 points to 32, with Kandy getting on the last try. But we spoke about Danushka Ranjan. Let's talk about the man who replaced Danushka Ranjan in that Havelocks outfit, Nishon Pereira. He touched down twice this game, and he has been one of the best players for Havelocks this season.
He scored in the last game between the two sides as well, which was a league decider down
and
at
also
Havelock
up
Park.
in Kandy in the first round.
Absolutely. So he has been, for me, one of the revelations of this, along with Tirana Vijayasinghe, one of the real revelations of this rugby season. I didn't see him getting to where he is now when he was playing for St. Peter's. But now that he's come into his own, he's moved into his pet position in the absence of Ranjan, and he just has taken off. And it's really good to see if he can get a few more pounds on him but maintain his speed. I think he'll be a shoe-in for the Sri Lanka number 13 position if he keeps going the way he is.
That's about it from the Clifford Cup. Any thoughts about the next week of rugby, Shanaka?
Well, let's wait and see, Sudarshan. I don't think this school season is anything that we can make predictions about. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen. The more predictions we make, the sillier we end up looking.
That's all we have from the breakdown segment for today. And until next week, I'm Sudarshan signing off with Chanaka Amrisinghe.